Horse racing is often described as the sport of kings, but for jockeys, it is the sport of survival. Every time they mount up, they balance between glory and disaster, relying on the instincts of a half-ton animal traveling at breakneck speed while surrounded by rivals inches away. On July 24th, at Colonial Downs in Virginia, that fragile balance shattered for Tyler Connor, a Palmyra-born jockey whose promising career was interrupted in the most brutal fashion. Connor, who had already amassed more than 50 wins and over $1 million in earnings this year alone, now finds himself not on the back of a horse, but in a hospital bed, wrestling with the possibility that he may never ride again. The culprit was not a horse or a track surface. It was, as Connor bluntly put it, another rider. One rider's decision set in motion a chain of events that left Connor with a broken neck, fractured spine, and a diagnosis of central cord syndrome, a spinal injury that has robbed him, for now, of full control of his arms and hands. Connor remembers every second. It was his 7th ride of the day, and he was well into his rhythm at Colonial Downs. The race started normally, with the horses breaking cleanly from the stalls. But within moments, another rider cut across his line. Connor's mount clipped heels, a dreaded phrase in racing. When one horse's front hoof catches against the hind leg of another, the momentum is often catastrophic. Connor's horse stumbled, he went down hard. It's like being on the highway and a car swerves across 3 lanes without a signal, Connor later explained. You've got nowhere to go, you can't stop it. Unlike many jockeys who were knocked unconscious during falls, Connor stayed awake. That, in some ways, was worse. He lay on the track paralyzed for more than half an hour, aware of everything, unable to move. Around him, the chaos of racing continued, officials rushing to him, the medical team mobilizing, and the crowd falling into stunned silence. He couldn't move, he couldn't get up. He knew right away this was different. He remembered it all. Minutes later, a helicopter descended onto the course. Connor was medevaced directly from the track to a trauma center, beginning a medical journey that would leave scars not just on his body, but on his identity as a jockey. The scans revealed what Connor already feared: catastrophic damage. His C1 vertebra, just below the skull, had fractured. This injury alone is life-threatening. The C1 sits at the very top of the spine, and fractures here often result in paralysis or worse. The damage didn't stop there. Connor had also fractured his T5 vertebra, with one fracture described as a compression and another just above it. Doctors also diagnosed central cord syndrome (CCS). This rare spinal cord injury occurs when the central part of the spinal cord is damaged, often leading to greater weakness in the arms and hands than in the legs. For a jockey whose career relies on gripping reins, balancing in the saddle, and controlling a 1,000-pound racehorse with fingertip precision, CCS is nothing short of devastating. The doctors told me recovery could take 6 to 18 months, Connor said. But even then, there's no guarantee I'll get everything back. My fingers, my hands, they're the hardest part. It's frustrating, but I'm hopeful. Every day gets a little better despite the diagnosis. Connor refuses to wallow. In interviews, his tone is pragmatic, even optimistic. Every day gets a little better, he said. I can feel improvements, small ones, but they matter. The doctors don't guarantee I'll get all my sensation and movement back, but I'm hopeful I will. Rehabilitation is now his daily grind. Hours of physical therapy are devoted to regaining strength and mobility. Exercises that once seemed simple, gripping a cup, lifting an arm, buttoning a shirt, have become milestones in a long journey back. Friends describe him as fiercely determined. He's one of the toughest people I know, said one fellow rider. If anyone can come back from this, it's Tyler. For jockeys, identity is inseparable from the saddle. Connor has been around horses since childhood, building a career in one of the most dangerous professions in sport. To imagine life without riding is a challenge almost as great as the physical recovery. When asked if he could ever see himself riding again, Connor doesn't slam the door shut. Never say never, he said with a grin. I love riding good horses. Maybe not full-time, but maybe for one last hurrah, maybe just one more good ride. It's a sentiment familiar to many jockeys who've faced serious injury. The sport is addictive, the speed, the strategy, the connection with the horse. For Connor, the question of return is not just physical, but emotional. Could he risk it again? Could he trust his body? According to multiple sources, including Connor himself, the rider who cut him off was suspended for 15 days. In racing terms, that is a slap on the wrist, a punishment that some argue does not reflect the seriousness of the consequences. Connor has chosen not to release video of the fall, preferring to focus on his recovery rather than on controversy. Still, his comments make clear that he believes responsibility lies squarely with another rider's reckless move. It wasn't the horse, it wasn't the track. It was another rider's fault, he repeated firmly. Connor's accident highlights what racing insiders already know: jockeys live on the edge every time they race. Horses in flat racing can reach 40 miles per hour. Riders weigh barely over 100 pounds, perched on minimal saddles. With fields often packed tightly, one misstep can bring down multiple riders. According to data from the Jockeys Guild, falls happen roughly once in every 250 rides. Many are minor, but some, like Connor's, are catastrophic. Spinal injuries are among the most feared outcomes. Past examples abound. Michael Rowland was killed in a 2004 racing accident. Gary Birch, a British jockey, was paralyzed after a fall in the 1990s. Even legendary riders like Frankie Dettori and Ruby Walsh have suffered broken bones from crashes. Racing is glamorous to spectators, but beneath the silks lies constant danger. For every winner's circle photo, there is the possibility of an ambulance ride. In the aftermath of the accident, the racing community rallied around Connor. Donations poured into his fundraiser, helping cover medical expenses and rehabilitation costs. Messages of encouragement arrived from fans, trainers, and fellow riders alike. The support has been overwhelming, Connor said. You don't realize how many people care until something like this happens. I can't thank them enough. For jockeys who often work without the high salaries of mainstream athletes, this support is critical. Insurance covers some costs, but long-term rehabilitation and lost income add up quickly. Fundraisers have become a vital safety net for injured riders. The mental battle physical recovery is only part of the story. The psychological toll of an injury like Connor's is immense. The trauma of lying paralyzed on the track, the uncertainty of recovery, the identity crisis of being a sideline jockey, these weigh heavily. Sports psychologists note that injured athletes often experience stages similar to grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and eventually acceptance. For jockeys, whose careers are often short and precarious, the pressure is doubled. Connor admits the hardest part is not knowing. If I knew I'd get better in a year, I could handle it. But not knowing, that's the toughest part. So what's next for Tyler Connor? In the immediate future, rehab is the priority. Doctors have set goals for mobility and independence, and Connor attacks them with the same competitive drive that made him a successful jockey. As for the long term, Connor is open-minded. Maybe he returns to racing. Maybe he pivots into training, horse ownership, or another role in the sport he loves. Whatever the path, it will not be far from horses. I've been around them my whole life, he said. I don't see that changing. Conclusion: courage in the face of uncertainty. Tyler Connor's story is not just about one fall or one injury. It is about the razor-thin line that jockeys walk every day. It is about resilience, community, and the refusal to let tragedy define you. For now, the question of whether Connor will ride again remains unanswered. What is certain, however, is that he will not face the journey alone. Backed by supporters, driven by determination, and armed with hope, he confronts the greatest race of his life, the race back to himself. I don't know what the future holds, he said quietly. But I'm not giving up, one day at a time. That's all you can do.